Hey gamers, welcome to another episode of Bonus XP. Today we're going to talk about the game Crystal Project, and we have one of our Discord members here for the first time. Brian, welcome
Hey,
to the podcast. So glad to have
thanks for
you.
having me.
Yeah, this is long anticipated. I feel like you're one of the only people who I know that has played Crystal Project and loves it as much as I have. So excited for that.
Me too. There's so many people in the Discord that talk about like Final Fantasy V specifically that I'm just like, please play this game.
Well, yeah, why have you not played this game? Because when
Yeah,
you play a game like Final Fantasy V, you aren't playing it for the story, you're playing it for the experiences, and I feel
exactly.
like that's basically what Crystal Project is. But speaking of what Crystal Project is, I know you've done a little research
hmm
on this game, and I'd kind of like you to talk about, because indie games tend to not disappoint, especially small creators really pay attention to their inspirations and
Yeah,
the passion, and they usually share that passion with a lot of other people. I feel like that's kind of like the hub of or the crux of a lot of different indie developers. So what do you know about what went into the development of this game?
yeah. I mean, it's another one of those games that like that has just been solely developed. Like
So I mean, can you imagine making a game on your own?
yeah, and like the way he got into it was he was
I can't
actually
even make
playing
dinner
like
on my own.
same. He was just playing Mario Maker, and he was just like, wait, I could do this. And he like instead of like just doing like a lot of the development, he made like a lot of the front end tools first, so that like
Hmm.
his development was more like playing Mario Maker instead of actually like work, which is just
Do you
crazy by
know, did he
itself.
have a background in anything development wise where he'd be familiar with the software? Or if you don't, it's not a big
I
deal.
I actually don't know that, but
Okay.
I mean, I would assume he would have definitely some,
Yeah, I
because I
know,
mean,
like when we're thinking of some of the bigs, like Stardew Valley creator, 100%, like, I don't think he specifically went into game development, but I think he was some form of like software engineer or computer
mhm.
science major. Or like there was a familiarity with just like computer knowledge there. I know that, and I think that's a big hurdle for a lot of people like me, where you maybe had some form of liberal arts background and you're not a big techie, so like game
Yeah,
development seems so daunting. But yeah, what else did you learn about him?
like when he was like asking or like telling other people advice on like learning games too, he would mostly just be like just practice and like spend a lot of, so I don't think he had too much coding experience. I could definitely be wrong on
Sure.
that. um so
Yeah, when in doubt, YouTube will likely solve an answer for you.
everything, yeah,
Yeah, anything that you're doing, whether that's like cooking or fixing something, like anything DIY, kind of like that. You
yeah,
can find a YouTube video on it. Sure.
yeah. And he spent about 5 years developing this just like in his free time because it wasn't his full-time job. um
Sure.
and like something too that like I didn't expect was because I always like wondered like, well, how did he make all this music plus the game by himself? But a lot of the
Uh-huh.
music is actually royalty free music.
Oh, really? Shit.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, anyone who plays this game or has played it knows, like, some of the soundtrack is
yeah,
bumping. Like,
yeah,
it is so fun.
yeah,
Especially, like, some of the overworld map areas, like, that was a big selling point for me. So it's so crazy to think that it's just royalty-free music.
yeah. There's only two songs that he actually like paid for, like got commissioned, which
Sure.
I didn't write the artist names, but they're definitely in the credits.
Yeah, and I love that too. Anytime you walk into a new area in this game, the song pops like in one of the corners of the
Yeah,
map, and I think that's a nice little feature because I think it's a good way of like giving credit to wherever it came from. So
yeah. He definitely like mentioned how like important that was.
yeah, for sure. Well, why don't we start digging into the throes of this game? One thing that I find really interesting when talking about it is thinking of how to describe this game to people. Like, I know we
hmm
tend to put labels on things. I don't think labels are a bad thing. I know they can sometimes like limit someone's perspective of something, but this at the same time, like uh labels can give you an idea of what to expect. But for this
Yeah,
game, it's hard because there's so many different labels that go into it. So like, let's
for
kind of
sure.
throw some of them out as we go here on like what different labels or inspirations would we say hit this game?
So the biggest one, I think this game has so much MMO influence. If it
Yeah.
was a solo MMO, like especially with like the threat system, um,
Hmm.
and just like the exploration and the way that they write the different NPC dialogue, also, like it makes you feel like other players are in the game.
Yes. And so
Yeah,
like every NPC has a level,
yeah,
and most of them represent the classes that you are. And I've seen the sprites used before. I'm sure they're just like RPG Maker sprites for a lot of not. I'm sure some of them are unique, but I've seen them in other games
hmm,
before. So, but like it's cool to think like you're saying. Definitely an inspiration from MMO in that way, and like the aggro thing. You don't think of aggro in a
yeah.
turn-based RPG very often. Like it's rare when they actually like make that a transparent feature. So
I love that mechanic so much because it makes class selection so much better. Because like
mhm.
you have like these super squishy wizards, but like the warrior in the beginning being able to like use taunt to take that aggro off is it's so good.
It does suck when you have tank classes, but there's no way for a tank to like automatically pull
Hmm.
versus a lot of games like thinking of Final Fantasy, and you have your paladin or your knight. You know, they get the guard ability, but you have to either like two thresholds in what they're doing their job. Someone's hit points need to be below a certain threshold,
Hmm.
or they you choose to cover someone specifically. And this game has those
Yeah.
options, but with the threat meter for your character, you can kind of gauge that by like making your character, like you said, like really up their own threat themselves, so they are just innately the target. The game tells you who's being targeted too, which is
Yeah.
nice.
The game doesn't hide any information at all from you, which
No.
is really crazy. Like even it even shows your spells how much threat they generate.
Yeah, very helpful. I think another like inspiration and label, it's weird, I'm just gonna smash a few things together too. It's definitely an open world experience, which I think
Hmm.
is cool. And it's not so open world, kind of like Breath of the Wild, where you can literally go anywhere, but it's
Yeah.
open enough in the sense where like you are positively directionless, but it's
Hmm.
also kind of like a Minecraft experience too, because
Yeah.
like, you know, like it kind of looks like Minecraft in a way, maybe like more zoomed out, and it has that like slightly HD 2D
Yeah.
platformingness to it. Like, oh, there's so much that goes into this game. It's nuts.
Yeah, people like talked about like if you'd ever be able to put in like another mode where you could like build your own, but because of the assets, they are used in other games, so he
Hmm.
couldn't make that mode just because of the assets, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a bummer. What's another
Yeah,
label we would throw on this game?
I really think Metroidvania, because
Okay.
just like how you were talking about how the open world, but it's still like you can't go everywhere.
Uh huh.
Uh, you definitely get upgrades as you play the game that unlock other areas that you see first, which is I love that in a game. Like when you get to the capital, if you go to the region on the left, like there's a broken bridge that you can't jump. So you have to go the other way to get like one of the first game's mounts.
Yeah, this game does a good job of that, like walling progress in a way, but there's multiple ways to get around that walled progress. And
Yeah.
so sometimes it's little ways that you don't even know. Like you might think that you need a certain vehicle to get through, but you don't. There's
Hmm.
this really one fun part where we're talking about the capital. You can't go west out of the capital, but
Yeah.
there's actually like a secret way through the sewers that
Oh yeah, yeah.
you can take, and then you go like down and up and around, so you can go west, which you wouldn't want to because you get stomped by all the enemies there.
Oh yeah.
And just like the different crystals that you can use to teleport around, like you're totally right, you can go back to earlier parts of the game and there will be bosses that you probably couldn't have challenged,
Hmm.
um or treasures that you wouldn't likely have been able to get, which I
Yeah.
think is really cool. It's kind of like going back and getting the hearts in a Legends of Zelda game.
Yeah.
Like
Which
you should
honestly,
take your
that's another
notes.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah.
I guess you did kind of mention Zelda, but like it reminds me of like the first Legend of Zelda, like when it comes to exploration, because there's
Hmm.
not
That's a good
any story
comparison.
direction. Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
you figure it out. Oh, this is cool.
Yeah, the whole narrative of the game is finding crystals for classes,
Hmm.
and I think it works in a game like this because thinking of a game like Final Fantasy V, which I think is probably one of the biggest inspirations, especially
Yeah.
when you see the class system, we have our nostalgia in Final Fantasy V, but like if you think of the narrative, it's super super simple and it's not really what's driving you into the game. You know, it's truly like
Yeah.
the classes are right. Like you really
Hmm.
the build, and I feel like this game just is like, okay, yeah, that's what we're gonna focus on. Let's focus on the build, and I think that's what
Yeah.
makes it fun.
Yeah. Another like thing that I think it takes from Final Fantasy V inspiration is like the random fiesta that like players do. This game
Hmm.
also takes like a lot of those random rules. Like you can set everything random in this game, like random enemies, random chests, and it just has
It's
so much
terrifying to think of
replayability that
random
way.
enemies in this game because some of the enemies are really tough.
Yeah, this game, I feel like, but it also is like comparable to Suikoden in a way where it doesn't let you over grind on
Yeah.
the enemies, and it always kind of keeps you at like a pretty fair level balance.
Well, yeah, and I don't think leveling really matters as much as party composition or
Yeah,
class builds, which and equipment. I think like equipment goes a lot further
it
than
does.
really anything else.
Yeah,
Well, let's talk about like some of these things that we're seeing in this game. So we've labeled it as an open world
hmm,
Zelda one like Final Fantasy
yeah,
five like MMO like there's a lot of things like even though it is not an MMO like it definitely has some of those features.
hmm,
Minecraft like has some
yeah.
platforming. What are some of the things that you feel you enjoyed the most out of this game?
Um, the equipment and skill trees.
Okay,
Um,
let's hit the equipment first because I definitely want to go with you on that, and then we can jump to skills.
yeah, the equipment is so cool because yeah, a lot of it actually has different things that help your build already. Like
Hmm.
like the first thing that I remember using was the I think it was called the poison kiss dagger,
Uh
which
huh.
you just get a free poison dot really easily. Or like later in the game, there's like an oil sword, which is really really good with like a scholar build because you can just stack like fire damage and it gets so good.
Yeah, I'm with you on the equipment too. I feel like very often when you're playing an RPG, you get the newest weapon,
Hmm.
and it's just immediately better because the stats are better. And
Yeah.
I didn't feel like that was the case in this game. I feel like a lot
Hmm.
of weapons go into like a different focus or a different build, kind of like you're saying. Like
Yeah.
there are swords that will increase your magic stat. There are
Hmm.
swords that will do status effects. There are
Yeah.
swords that are elemental focused. There are swords that will cut your hit points down by 50% but let you train.
Yeah.
Like, I think it really gets into those cool things where, but like, just because it does more damage doesn't mean it's better.
Yeah.
Even some of the stabs that you get, you'd be like, oh, stabs are the healer weapon, but like stabs can be some of the heavy hitting weapons too,
Yeah.
because they have like the magic focus one or the healing focus ones, but then they also have the more damaging focus ones, and there are certain classes that kind of revolve around those things. So like, yeah, I think equipment goes a long way into making the game distinct because nothing pisses me off more when when you're playing like any RPG and you go to a store and you're like, well, I'm not
Hmm.
going to buy that because I know there's another city a block away and like the equipment is infinitely
Yeah.
better.
That's what kind of like ruins the steal mechanic in Final Fantasy 9 Is like you
Hmm.
can steal that equipment like 30 minutes early, but it's almost always in the next city.
Yeah, truly. And uh, what's nice too is I feel like a lot of the equipment that you find when you're exploring this game isn't in the shops. Like it is
Yeah.
very, very early, just because it's like the things that you'd be seeing. But as you go through, I think there are just so many unique weapons and pieces of equipment that like you you almost don't need to buy things. Like it's more supplementary
Yeah.
than it is, because you just are finding so many different cool things. That's not to say the things in the shop are bad, because there's some really good things there too. But do you ever
Hmm.
feel like you didn't really get a lot of money?
Honestly, I feel like this game was made money more relevant than like other, like, because any other RPG, I feel like you just have so much money and you never spend it.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
this
this game
one,
might be like you really have to pick and choose your your
yeah.
purchases.
Well, seriously, there's like when I would go to a new town, you would only be able to really upgrade like one or two characters, and then you'd have to go
Hmm.
back and explore to get more money.
Yeah, or just like press on through and hope that you find something new. Like usually the game was
Yeah.
good about when you had like there's a hunter class right before you get the
Hmm.
hunter class, you might pick up a bow or two for free.
Yeah.
Which was like they'll make it so that way you can function with a new class. You can kind of see like, well, these are the potential loadouts for it.
Yeah. I like that a lot too. It kind of gives you a hint that you're really close to the next class too.
Yeah, truly. All right, let's talk about the builds then, because I know this is one of the other things that you wanted to say, and I think this game does it better than Final Fantasy V and some of the other
Hmm.
games like it. But I kind of want to hear your input first.
Yeah. My favorite thing about the skills and like the sub, you get like your main job and then you can equip like your sub jobs. But after you master one, you get, if you find like their master teacher, you can get an item that makes you get like twice as much LP,
Uh
uh,
huh.
which is how you buy abilities in this game. And it just makes, if you want to max out another character in that same class, so much like faster.
Truly, it promotes that like maybe you don't have multiple people be the same class until one person
Yeah.
masters, and you can master classes pretty early in this one.
Yeah.
Like if you stick with the original six, um, maybe until the
Yeah.
fifth or
Say,
sixth class, you might have completed
I
a
definitely
class.
did. I
Yeah,
by that point I definitely had like the warrior and the wizard mastered. So you can definitely get some early ones.
yeah. I think one thing I liked about the class composition or like your build is you just like Final Fantasy V, you have your main class subclass, but
Hmm.
you also had 10 points that you could allocate to
Yeah,
sub
the passives.
abilities. Yeah,
Yeah.
your like your passive abilities, and you could like swap those in and out from however you were learning them. Um, I think that's one thing that it does better, because I know a lot of games you're just so limited, especially five. Like that was the one thing,
Hmm.
unless you were the mimic class or the freelancer class,
Yeah.
you didn't get any of those passives unless you equipped them, and that was a slot. This
Yeah.
game, like you really can hone in that build, by just like mixing some of those things up, and the passives are great.
They're
Like
so
for
good.
first 5 rounds, you have like the protect spell, first
Hmm.
attack,
Oh yeah.
never misses. Like you got
Yeah.
some really good unique things in there.
Yeah. I love that feature a lot. That's like I will probably reference Final Fantasy IX way too many times, but that's what made that game's in-game content was so good too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Good point. It's exactly like Final Fantasy IX. I didn't even think about that.
Hmm.
It's done that way. I think nine you get more points as you level up, though, right?
Yeah, you get by the end of the game, you have a ton, so you have a lot
Yeah.
to work with. Like everyone
Where
will probably be hasted and like protected as soon as you like go into every fight.
I also liked to. I find sometimes when you're playing RPGs where
Hmm.
you have different classes, some classes are kind of like the gag classes, or they don't have a
Yeah,
lot of viability, and I
right.
felt like everything had a good purpose, and if you can't find it, you may not know how what it is or how to manipulate it yet.
Yeah.
And I know my first run through on the game, there were some classes that I really passed up on because I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't see the point of using this class. But then, like, on a second playthrough, with a little bit of knowledge, I was like, oh man, that class is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I can do so much. Or you think of, like, the combination more. Like, my
Hmm.
healer, for example, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to have them be like a sage-ish class where they can attack spells and healing spells because that's like normally the way you
Yeah.
do it. But I actually paired it. There's like the is it the Viking class?
Yes.
Is I think it's the Viking class, and their abilities. Some of them are tanking, but some of them are like healing. And
Hmm.
this game is one of those like you have your turn bar at the bottom, and every action you
Yeah.
do has like a certain charge counter. But some of the Vikings spells are heal everybody and provide a bonus. But if you were just like a based Viking, they wouldn't heal very much. They just give the bonus. But
Yeah.
if you've been like specking as a healer, now they are healing a bunch and like you have re-raise and a bunch of different things. I thought it was really like, man, I wouldn't have thought of making a class like that. So it was nice to see these like really cool combos.
Yeah. I love that design so much. And I think he did such a good job about balancing all of it.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite classes in this game?
I am a sucker for blue mages. The scholar
Same.
is
Oh
my
yeah,
favorite. Yeah.
absolutely. Every time. Every
Yeah.
time.
It's just another thing to constantly be like like getting constant upgrades to. Like I love well, oh yeah, well I'm going to get this crystal, but like on the way I know I'm going to get a few new spells or thinking about backtracking to old areas to look for new like blue spells that I missed.
Well, and also it feels good because like, you are collecting things, which I mean is
Mhm.
always something that people enjoy in a game.
Yeah.
So I think that's like it needs to take away. But yeah. I love Blue Mages. It makes me happy that you're a
Yeah,
Blue Mage
same.
fan.
I
And oh good.
I was just gonna say I also really loved the fencer too, because like it feels
Hmm.
so underwhelming at first, but then he's so overpowered. It's so
So
good.
there's a fencing class in this game. It's a sword master,
Hmm.
and you have a couple damage dealers already at that point when you get it.
Yeah,
I think it's the first class that you get, right?
yeah,
Yeah. You have your monk, you have your um warrior, and then shortly
yeah.
after you get a couple other damage classes. But like this one's really focused on stances,
Hmm.
and dots damage over
Yeah.
time go a long way in this game.
So far, like
Yeah.
in like the early game, I would always use like the bleed, the poison from the fencer, but then like the shaman has like an acid bleed also,
Uh-huh.
and like
Yeah, it's
you're
it's
doing
burn, poison, and what's the third one? Bleed. Burn, poison, and bleed are your three
yeah,
dots.
yeah,
Yeah. And if you stack if regular enemies don't have anything for the most part that
hmm
decreases that. Some of them might be
no,
resistant to fire, so like you could be stacking 45% damage on enemies. Bosses, if you read into, because again, like this game gives you the full transparency. You look at a boss, it tells
yeah,
you how weak they are to things, what status effects work on them, like
yep,
everything. Um, it'll be like damage over time stuff is reduced by like 80%, but still, like
yeah.
it still goes a long way.
Yeah, the only thing it doesn't really show you is the HP the first time that you fight them. And then after that, you fight them again, it shows their full HP.
That's true. And like,
Yeah.
but you can scan them. And like, there are a couple of
Yep.
classes that have scan. And speaking of
Yeah.
like classes that have scan, my favorite class, the warlock slash the red mage,
Yeah.
literally can carry you through the entire game.
That
Uh,
was a character that I ignored my first playthrough.
did you?
Yeah.
Double cast is a lifesaver. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily the biggest damage dealer, but they can set up burn. But the most
Hmm.
important thing I think they can do is everything. I think all of their spells have no charge time, so they
That's
can revive on the spot,
that's so good cuz the
and you
amount of
double cast
times
that. Uh-huh.
yeah, the amount of times that my cleric would get killed while trying to revive someone.
True, because of the charge time. Yep.
Yeah.
Or they can like dispel negative effects on you
Yeah.
or the enemies, which negative and positive effects, which I thought was
Yeah.
very helpful because very often, like this guy just got like 60% extra damage. I need to do something about that. There it's the warlock. They got you.
Yeah.
Um, but rethinking like different ways different classes handle situations, like you think of the thief and they're just like, oh, they're speedy stealers, they don't do
Hmm.
much. But like your thief in this game with the right build can be your highest damaging character. Like they
Yeah.
have, if they don't have the highest threat level, they are your biggest damage dealer. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
It's
And
just crazy.
it's just a fun way to like start building your party just based off of that. Like you'll know you'll want the warrior so you can taunt so you can make it easier for your thief.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all about your party composition. Like honestly, if you have a good flow, I don't know
Hmm.
if you need to try something new until you hit a wall.
Yeah. Honestly, like it.
Can you think of any walls that you hit when you were playing?
Um, I had to lower the difficulty once
Okay.
because I tried playing on hard, but that first the trials boss where it summons the ads, I just did not have enough health to. It's a parasite and it summons like the mushrooms.
Oh, you're talking about like so the game's gated you and you have to have like 3 crystals and then you can like proceed to where it
Yeah.
gets a lot more open world and then yeah,
Hmm.
okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I tried to play that on hard and I just did not have enough like healing like power or I wasn't just fast enough in general. Like
I mean, if you went
I
from
got
hard to normal, I think that's fair.
yeah, normal is
Yeah.
perfectly balanced honestly.
Yeah, normal is, especially when you get to the late game, like normal is still hard. I think you get through this like little area where because it's open world, it doesn't want to like screw you over too much. So it's
Hmm.
pretty like flat. You might pound through, but then anything right before the final boss
Yeah.
slash post game stuff is really hard. Like the post
Yeah.
game stuff is going to take a specific group or strategy to
Yeah.
defeat. Yeah.
Which is another point like the game level caps you too like
Hmm.
earlier than most other games, so
It's
it
a
is more of
60,
a
right?
focused. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
way more focused about your builds.
I got walled pretty hard at the volcano.
Yeah.
There are 2 lizard bosses, and I didn't think about this until later. And this might be like a minor spoiler, it's not that big of a deal, but the
Hmm.
volcano is set up like a Legends of Zelda dungeon
Yeah.
where like the perspective changes and there are some rooms that lock until you defeat the monster in it.
Yeah.
And it's all about like finding a key and going to a different area and then like getting the boss key. But the bosses in that area, the 2 lizards, I feel like are the 2 lizards from, oh, it'd probably be Twilight Princess, right?
Yeah.
Where like it's this like each one is like has a sword on a different side, and then they
Hmm.
have like a shield. Is that? I feel like that like they feel like they were inspired from those guys, but those guys,
Yeah.
man, that is a tough battle.
It really is. I think he took a lot of like inspiration from Zelda. Like,
Or
uh,
just a lot of other games too.
yeah. But like you're talking about like the rooms being locked by keys. Like
Hmm.
the early game, it doesn't feel like as much of dungeons. But like once you
No.
start to get in that mid game, and like what's the dungeon where you literally have to get like there's a south key, a west key, east key, um, and then you get the north key last.
Oh, that's the it's the jail underneath the castle.
Yeah, that's when I started getting like really addicted because it started becoming a dungeon crawler at that point.
Yeah. I think the difference in the balance in a lot of the dungeons is great. Like some of them are platform heavy, some of
Yeah.
them are your other vehicles skill heavy, some of them are semi puzzle ish
Hmm.
heavy. Well, like we said, the Legends of Zelda one is all key based.
Yeah.
The Ninja one is all about like secret rooms and shit. So I think there's
Hmm.
a lot of like good versatility in the dungeon design too.
Yeah. Did you ever get walled by the platforming?
No, I'm actually a pretty proficient platformer,
Yeah.
so that was never a problem for me. I know one person in our Discord, probably the only other one who's played it because I made them. have really
Good.
struggled with it because they're not
Yeah.
a platformer. But like I never feel like it's so hard. I know that
Yeah.
I think it's hard when it comes to getting optional chests because there
Yeah.
are one of the vehicles lets you jump higher,
Hmm.
but there's like a little bit of a delay. And I
Yeah.
think like using that really throws off some of the jumping game, but I don't think it's so bad that people can't figure it out.
Yeah. There's a few jumps that are like very, very like you will only make this perfectly. And
Uh-huh.
there's definitely some moments where I was like, all right, let's take a break.
But I mean, like again, I don't think any of that is main progress stuff. I think it's like all
Yeah.
optional content. So
Yeah.
I guess it depends on which way you're coming in too. Like
Hmm.
what direction to an area you're coming in. Because sometimes you can find
Yeah.
some weird ways into some areas and you're like, maybe it wasn't supposed to go this way to get here.
Hmm.
Well, sounds like that was kind of a little bit of a dislike, and I think let's let's talk about that. Like, what were some things I wouldn't say like dislike in the sense of I hated this, but maybe like
Yeah.
room for improvement, or maybe if this game got a sequel, you'd want to see something polished out. What were some things that you think that might change that? You just
Yeah.
want to see changed?
I would say the maps. I wish they were unlocked differently, maybe like similar
Hmm.
to Elden Ring. So
Can
like
you
while you're
explain that?
exploring them. Yeah, so in the game you have to either there's items that you have to collect that you can turn in for the maps,
Hmm.
or you purchase them. Um, and I'd rather it be just when you're exploring, it unlocks the map rather than you have to buy the map because otherwise you're just blind.
Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
hard, especially I feel like in dungeons it was never a problem,
Yeah.
but in a lot of the overworld areas it was a problem, especially when you get to the near end game where you literally can go through the full scope of the world.
Yeah.
And kind of like what you're saying, there are pieces of map that you can find, and there are more pieces than there are what you need. But I didn't know, and this is a pro tip for anybody that does pick up this game. In the library in the main city is where you would go to turn in those pieces to like
Yeah.
buy the actual map. I didn't know that on my first run, so I was like, how many of
Mm-mm.
these pieces do I need to find in order
Right.
to make this map? And then like I had enough. I just didn't know that I was supposed to go there. Um,
Yeah.
I get it though. Like sometimes it can be really like it can make it a little easy and unfun if you just like automatically map everything. But like I agree with you. There needs to be some kind of compromise on like the other end where I am just so lost. Like I have no idea where I am or what is around me
Hmm.
because there's nothing that. Well, I guess I didn't realize this either. You can add um like icons on the map.
Oh, I
Like
never knew
yeah,
that.
I didn't know that until recently because they're like another like mini spoiler in the ocean. There are like 15 or 13 crabs that you can collect,
Hmm.
and they're always in approximately the same spot. And I went on a guide just to find them because like I can't find these last three that I need. And I opened up, I saw their map and they had little symbols that they were using. And I was like, oh, did they add those? And I looked at my map. I was like, fuck, you can tag
You can do
things
that the whole
on. Yeah,
time.
you can do that the whole time. So maybe I hate this. I hate saying like an experience gets bogged down when things aren't explained because I hate over tutorials. But
Yeah.
like, I think maybe just like hinting at more things. Like I think characters on the in the game that you talk to do a good job of explaining some things. So maybe just
Yeah.
more of those. Like, did you know that you can tag things on the map if you go in it? You know,
Yeah.
like something like that would be helpful, especially in the
I'm
tutorial area.
yeah, I'm sure the know-it-all ducks probably tell you that, and I just didn't go through all their dialogue.
Yeah, it's possible. I talked to some of them just to see if there was anything else that I was missing on like my second run through, and I don't know if I noticed that, but hey, it could have been there.
Yeah. The other
Um,
thing
yeah.
was fast traveling. Um, it gets better honestly as you play the game, but like
Hmm.
the early game backtracking is pretty painful because you don't have any of your vehicles yet, and it you don't really have
Yeah.
anywhere to teleport except for back
the
to
main
like
hub.
your last save crystal, really. So like going to ends is just kind of more annoying, and you really don't have the money in the beginning to be stocking up items.
Truly, I kind of agree with you. I don't mind so much that you collect the different fast travel points. So they're like crystals that you can buy at shrines,
Yeah.
and they give you a budget option. They give you like a one use one,
Hmm.
or you can buy like the infinite use one. But the infinite use ones are like breaking the bank for sure.
Yeah.
Like if you buy that, you're probably like only going to be able to buy maybe like one piece of equipment if there's a shop
Hmm.
nearby, and that can be a tough choice. Like I was always well, I'm going to buy the map and I'm going to buy the teleport stone of whatever kind, just because there's probably going to be some gear nearby that'll help me upgrade, but not all the time. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of money. So I'm with you. Like maybe fast travel could have been a little bit better there too.
Yeah. That's honestly really the only two things that I had. Otherwise, I love the game.
Yeah, it's so good. It's just
Hmm.
hard to find fault. Um, I think for me, one of the things that I did maybe would want to see is maybe even more classes in the
Yeah.
future. Where on a second or third playthrough, it did kind of feel like I was slowly starting to default back to what
Yeah.
I had been using. Especially some of the late game classes just come in so late that I didn't feel like I was going to use them. And like
Hmm.
unlike Final Fantasy V, aside from like the Mimic class in Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy V lets you get classes in groups. This
Yeah.
game you get them one at a time, and they are really
Hmm.
spread out. So some of the late game classes, like it was either there's nothing here that's really benefiting my build, or um I like it's just so late that why would I want to try this class out in general? Like literally, like I got this class before the final boss. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a bummer. I hope he does make a second one.
would love
Because
it.
yeah, I know he stopped like doing any development for this one in 2022. So we'll see.
Well, I think that was because he was bringing it to the Switch.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah, like
sense.
definitely like building it so that way it could be other places so we can enjoy it. And I own it on in two places. I own it on the Switch and I own it on
Yeah.
the Steam Deck just because I wanted to play it on both.
I think it's perfect on both, honestly. And it's only $15. Like
Yeah, it is
it's
not. You are getting your money's worth for this
yeah.
game, 100% for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long do you think you would say that you spent like hours wise on your first playthrough?
Oh man. Playthrough one, I did everything aside from like the most super of super bosses. I will say
Yeah.
also there's so much optional content throughout the
Yeah.
game. Like little and big things. There are little side quests that you won't know unless you talk to people about
Mhm.
collecting things. There are classes that you may miss. Once you get more vehicles, there's just like so much more content that's added. And I think that makes it so much fun because you could just go
Yeah.
directly through and still have a good time, but like you could miss out on some fun equipment. But I think probably about 50-ish hours, and that's because of
Yeah.
many losses on the like I would say post game bosses, but like end game optional bosses that you could fight. Like
Yeah.
a certain undersea octopus dweller may exist in this universe, and that bitch took
Yeah.
me a little while to take down. So some of those ones, yeah, that's kind of where it came from. I didn't even know that you could race your I'm gonna put quotation marks around your chocobos in this game either. Like I didn't do that until
Yeah.
this time around either.
The races are so fun. I
Yeah,
spent so
well,
much time
minus
like
one,
perfecting
minus
those.
one. One is
Yeah.
really dumb, but yeah.
Yeah. Is it the fourth one?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, it's the fourth one. If you know, you know.
Yeah, there's a way to
Well,
cheese it, but
I saw that. I was like, no,
yeah.
it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Um, anything for the cause before we wrap up our discussion?
I think that's a pretty perfect place to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think this is good. I would say play this game if you need to scratch that Final Fantasy itch. If you're tired of
Hmm.
games that are really bogging you down with the narrative and you just want to get out there and explore, and if you're really into building characters and building parties and
Yeah.
having a good time, I think you will love this game. Like, I definitely an A plus game for me. But
Agreed.
Yeah, as usual, we would love to hear your thoughts if you've played this game in the comments, or if maybe you picked this game up. We're still working on hopefully getting the creator of this game on the podcast, so don't be surprised if you see a follow up at some point in the future. We're crossing our fingers that he will come and join us. We've asked, so until then, you can hit us up on RPGaymer on Discord, be a part of the conversation over there too, and we will see you next time.